I was reminded of a conversation that I had with somebody. Um, some of the people that I'm working with are wealth advisors, and we're working together because they want to be growing personally, and they want to see that translate into their business professionally, and working with clients and some of the things that they can achieve there. It's not surprising that when you have something that seems like a roadblock in your professional life, a roadblock to your growth, that you'll also see it show up in your personal life because you're the common denominator. So let's just give a practical example to get started. Let's say you have a fear of speaking your opinion about something, your perspective about something. So you kind of dance around it. You never really get to the facts of the matter as to what you actually mean. You kind of just become agreeable and you allow people to kind of tell you how things are. Maybe it's with your spouse or maybe it's with a prospect or a client. It's unsurprising that you might have a difficult time navigating uh, growing your business because in the sales process there's 5 steps that I walk people through when they think about the sales process. It's connect, pre-qualify, experience, offer, close. And in order to effectively walk somebody through those steps, you have to be able to get to clarity and get to resolution quickly. And in order to do that, you have to ask questions that might create the opportunity for somebody to say no. So, I was thinking about uh, what could be a principle that would add value to you and your success mindset. And it became very simple. This conversation that I had, the context of the conversation was the person is bringing people together, and they do it a few times a year only, bringing clients and then bringing prospects all in the same place. There's an opportunity because when you only do this a few times a year and you have one to many, you don't just do it to say, hey, we're here, we're nice guys or girls, and we'd love to work with you. You do it because ultimately you have something to offer. You are serving people who are at that table, quite literally, and you have the opportunity to serve them in other ways with whatever it is that you're doing professionally. And one of the hangups that can happen for many people is that they won't want to make the ask because they're afraid that somebody might not say yes, or worse, they might say no. They'll get the uh, response that they're not looking for, so they won't even make the ask because then they'll at least feel better um, about not getting rejected. And, this can show up in work in the ways of, okay, well, I never really get to resolution with prospects. I'm never really getting to a yes or a no, and we kind of live in the limbo. That can show up in work, but it can also show up in your personal life because, you basically build quiet resentment towards a loved one or a friend because you're never really speaking your mind about what you actually mean. Why? Maybe you want to manage their emotional state because you're dependent upon their emotional state and how they feel. So if you make them feel better, then you feel better. Well, that's like a little codependency there, right? Exposed. So you got to learn to be comfortable with understanding that you're not really in control of other people's responses. And one of the things that's going to help you in your success mindset is that you have to really allow people to make that choice for themselves. And you can't do that unless you make the ask. They make the choice for themselves about what they think about what you said. And by the way, just as a reminder, like you can say things perfectly and it can be received completely not how it was intended. I mean, just like practical example, okay, Jesus walking this earth, he literally like lived a life we couldn't live and said things perfectly and people did not receive it how he intended. Not always. So, you think about it, it's like, okay, well, rejection's a part of the game. People not understanding what I'm saying, even if I say it perfectly, part of the game. If that's the case, then I need to learn how or practice communicating effectively. And one of the ways that you can do that is learning how to make the ask, especially when it comes to, and let's just call it business. So the example I give is you get a bunch of people in a room, you only do it a few times a year, and ultimately you're doing it because you like to work with them, but more importantly, you can serve them. The analogy I gave was you got a bunch of people in the room, you make dinner, it's in the back kitchen, and you walk out and don't say anything, and they're just standing in the room or sitting and talking or whatever, and dinner is waiting, but they don't even know that it's one, there, and two, ready. Then how in the world can you expect them to say yes to eating? And it's the same principle and concept when you think about whatever it is you're doing for business. For me in private coaching, it's like if I don't let people know that this is what I'm here to serve and do, then how can they even make the choice to say yes, let alone say no? So for me, it's about understanding, hey, you work so hard in whatever it is you do for work, for example, especially if you're in a sales type role, you work so hard to make the dinner. Well, you got to like at least tell people it's there and let them make the choice as to whether they want to eat it or not. And so for me, what that looks like in this example, you guys have actual dinner together. What does making the ask look like? Well, it looks like standing up and saying, hey, we're really glad we could serve you guys here. We also have other ways that we actually serve some of these people who are sitting right here with us. And one of those ways was this. They came to us with this problem, and here's what we did for them as a solution. Another way was this. Here they came to us with this problem, and this is the solution that we came with. And, should you guys have that problem now or in the future, we want to schedule time because we are here to serve you guys. And that's what it can look like, as simple as that in making the ask. And so it's a call to action, really. A closed mouth is not going to get fed. And one of the reasons you got to make the ask is because you got to let people know, hey, like we can be available. And here is what you do next. Should you need that? Should you find that your needs currently match what we're here to provide for you and how we're serving? So when you think about whatever it is in life, whether it's, I gave the professional example, or when you think about even just personally and whether or not you're communicating in a way where you can, allow people to even respond and you being okay with whatever it is that their response is, you got to think about, that statement and just get back to that and think about that statement and that phrase and say, okay, make the ask. Say the thing, and it may be uncomfortable because you may not get the response that you're hoping, but the purpose is not, do you get the response you're hoping? The purpose is, are you practicing? Are you practicing the thing that you need to be doing, which is making the ask?